This is a special audio recording by Mo with GnosticWarrior.com and the Gnostic Warrior radio show and podcast. This will be part of my series of weird occult things that I find in research that I'd like to share with you. And this one has to deal with a previous recording that I did titled The Magic of Vagina Blood. This one is called The Science of Menstrual Blood, Poisons, Toxins, and Worms. My last article and audio piece titled The Magic of Vagina Blood had immediately got some mixed reactions. A lot of my followers enjoyed it, but were a bit confused because I had provided no science to back up what I was saying. Many other people were either offended because they thought it may be a misogynist attack on women, or that it was just some type of cruel joke or conspiracy hoax. Also, some other people were thinking that I was being mean by giving out the facts in regards to this blackish blood that often clots from the pools of decrepit acid, toxic poisons, and even worms with teeth, like the one pictured to the above right, that comes from inside the body and exits the vagina every 28 days in order to keep a woman healthy who is of childbearing age. After all, imagine what those teeth would do to a small little fetus. Yeah, it's like that, folks. This apocalyptic reality of wormwood, in which the injurious nature of the creamy mucus-filled menstrual blood has been known for approximately 2,000 years or more. This was when the natural philosopher and army commander of the early Roman Empire, Pliny, who had put in writing the most extensive information given at the time on the incredible powers attributed to menstrual blood in his famous book on natural history. If you still think this is BS, maybe you should research this by Googling worms in vagina to see what kind of horrified women find worms crawling out of their vaginas on Yahoo Questions and Answers, and see what you come up with. The facts are that you will see many terrified women who are wondering what the hell these worms are doing in their vagina. Here, let me help you with some of that Googling. Here are some links for you to check out to see for yourself. Worms and poison in the vagina. These invaders of the vagina are said to be pinworms, which are small worms that infect the intestines. In women, these worms may move from the intestines and anus into the vulva and into the vagina, where some of these worms feed, live, and breed, and some are simply released during the menstrual cycle in a purge of Noah-type flood secretions every 28 days. This is verified as scientific fact, for in the hemorrhage of the ureter, doctors and some observing women will occasionally find these worm-like masses in the acidic, clotted blood during their menstrual cycle. This is often associated with irritation or discomfort of the vagina because these adult worms have entered the vagina rather than the anus. Here's a great book, Robb and Company's Family Physician, a work on domestic medicines, that tells about the various worms that are likely to produce symptoms of disease and how they are found in both children and adults. What is rather interesting to me is the connection that this author and many other medical doctors make between worms and disease, a connection I feel that is the true root of what causes human sickness and disease. First, pinworms and threadworms. Second, long roundworms or lumbricoid. Third, tapeworms or tamia. First, the pinworm is the smallest of the three. It is 1/3 to 1/2 an inch long and as thick as a common-sized thread. It has a very small swelling, which it uses for, and out of courtesy, will call its head. Usually it is found only in the very last part of the intestine, and sometimes in the vagina, into which it crawls from the anus. At times, only a few are seen together. Sometimes, however, they are crowded together in large masses, most generally among children. The symptoms occasioned by this worm vary a great deal. One of the most common is a violent, distressing itching of the anus, especially in the evening and at night, and disturbing sleep a great deal. Some children are driven almost frantic by this itching and are tormented by an almost unaccountable nervousness in consequence of it. Among adults, this itching is scarcely ever so painful and severe. The irritation caused by the worm sometimes occasions a catarrhal affection of the mucous membrane of the rectum, or spasmodic contraction of the sphincter, with a constant urging to stool, which is not less distressing than the itching. If a large number of them penetrate into the vagina, they cause severe itching, whites, and the constant rubbing is apt to give them rise to self-abuse. Besides these less important results, we sometimes meet without any otherwise assignable cause, with more important disturbances, principally of the central nervous system, sometimes result in indefinite spasmodic movements, and at other times in eclampsia, epilepsy, chorea, etc. We cannot prove that these affections are caused by worms, but this seems to be more provable, as a removal of the worms is sometimes succeeded by an entire disappearance of the nervous disease. Here are some of the symptoms of worms straight from the New York Times. Difficulty sleeping due to the itching that occurs during the night. Intense itching around the anus. Irritability due to itching and interrupted sleep. Irritated or infected skin around the anus from constant scratching. Irritation or discomfort of the vagina in young girls. And loss of appetite and weight. I've written about worms before in my article, Humans Infested with Worms from Hell, where I explain how doctors tell of patients who have escaped death by these worms from extreme purging and fasting. They had given reports of the vomit, and within their stools up to a quarter pint of live and dead worms were purged from their systems. In one medical journal I found, it was reported the second volume of medical chirurgical transactions, a person discharged between 800 and 1,000 of these worms in the course of the year. This all makes perfect hellish sense, since some of these worms not only live, but breed deep within the dark, moist confines of the human bowels and organs, and they are there, then they wiggle their ways into the vagina. Please don't worry, women out there. The beautiful part about nature of the menstrual cycle is how often women are perfectly engineered to have children, and the cycle of the discharge of the poison and worms ensures that the baby will survive in the womb. If this natural cycle didn't occur, the baby would most likely be eaten alive by these same said worms and acids that kill just about anything they touch over time. This is not pseudoscience or conspiracy nonsense, but a scientific reality that we all must face. I can understand the reactions people have to these facts, because often cold hard truths are at first attacked and laughed at before they are ever accepted as truth. This subject is in regards to menstrual blood of women, and it is one of those taboo types of things that nobody wants to talk about, let alone face the facts that it is a very toxic substance that carries the body's poisons and worms out of the vagina and the blood during a woman's menstrual cycle. Like Pliny had said, it spoils vines forever, makes all plants and trees barren, burns up the herbs in the garden, and makes fruit fall off the trees. It is this vaginal mucus that has an acidic quality that the worms live in, which of course becomes rancid from their rotting carcasses, and this acid exerts a corrosive effect on everything it comes into contact with. Yeah, this acidic, worm-infested blood is really potent, folks. Facts are that no other female mammal loses so much blood as a woman. In each cycle, a woman loses from 2 to 14 ounces of fluid of bad blood, poison, or a group of poisons, and a plethora of worms that are cast out in an effort of the system to rid itself of these toxins and the slimy foreign invaders with teeth who eat our flesh and suck on our blood. This normally occurs every 28 days, and many women menstruate every 2 weeks and enjoy good health. What is discharged is blood, mucosal tissue, acids, and additional excretions of some toxic chemicals through a menstrual blood from the uterus down to the vagina. The mucous membranes are sticky, thick fluids secreted by the mucous membranes and glands and is termed mucus. In the human female reproductive system, cervical mucus prevents infection. The consistency of cervical mucus varies depending on the stage of a woman's menstrual cycle. After a menstrual period ends, the external is blocked by mucus that is thick and acidic. This mucus that comes out of the vagina blood is mixed with glands and worms, which contain both serous and mucus cells. A common trait of serous fluid is the role of assisting digestion, excretion, and respiration. In medical fields, especially cytopathology, serous fluid is a synonymous for effusion fluids from various body cavities. There are many causes for effusions, which include involvement of the cavity by cancer. In my previous article, I'd mentioned that if menstrual blood touches the vine, it spoils it forever, and by its very touch, it makes all plants and trees barren, and they that be newly set to die. It burns up all the herbs in the garden and makes fruit fall off the trees. After all, it is an acidic, mucus-filled poison with worms, and the last time I checked, it was not just bad for people, but bad for apples, bad for trees, bad for plants, bad for herbs, and nature in general. Hence the reason why this matter is discharged out of the vagina every 4 weeks, folks. If it wasn't, you and I wouldn't be here, and giant worms would rule the planet instead of us parasitic humans. Hell, the way we are headed with the managing of our planet, this rule by worm may very well become a reality if we are not careful. Although the menstrual blood is not poisonous per se, as the article clearly states, mostly poisons and worms are released during this process. Hence, it may be dangerous for people to have sex or prolong sex while a woman is on her menstrual cycle, and quite possibly, red wings can become dead worm wings, and red balls, dead worm-infested balls after some time if you're not careful. Hell, look at what happened to the 1st century AD Herod the Great, who was literally eaten alive by worms. In Acts 12:23, and immediately the angel of the Lord smote him, because he gave not God the glory, and he was eaten of worms, and gave up the ghost. Church father and father of English history, Saint Bede, had written about Herod. In the 47th year of the reign of the Emperor Augustus, Herod was attacked by dropsy, and his whole body being swarming with worms. He died in a wretched but not unmerited torments. This is the end of The Science of Menstrual Blood, Poisons, Toxins, and Worms by Mo with Gnostic Warrior Radio and Podcast. And also, if you'd like to hear some more weird occult knowledge, read my articles, and see plenty of other podcasts for free, please go to my website at gnosticwarrior.com. That's spelled GNOSTIC warrior.com, where I spread knowledge for free, and I hope to see you there.